Okay, morning everybody. How are you?
Fine, thank
Hope
you.
everybody's doing well with all this crazy year and finding fun things to do in the craziness. Um, Supper was great, actually. I thought, kind of. I mean, it's still green. We got lots of rain. It was hot a little, but yeah, it was an amazing. Huh?
It was
Well, when it
humid,
was
but
hot, it was hot.
it
but
never got over 100.
We had 2 days.
Yeah.
I had one.
Not much. Not much.
Yeah, and it was cloudy a lot, which we who stand in the sun always notice clouds. Because usually in the middle of the summer we're out there going, oh, So yeah, that was nice. So
And it
yeah,
rained periodically
It did.
enough to keep everything green.
it was great. It was great. Not in Willis Point. It never rains in Willis Point. Anyway, I kind of enjoyed it. So anyway, but I'm always ready for summer to move on and fall to get here. So how many people have decorated for fall?
A little bit.
I actually have. I never did it this early before.
Decorate? What's that?
Well, I put my 6 little pumpkins out.
Oh.
Yeah, I call that decorating. I don't kill myself. So anyway, we're talking about natives this morning, which a lot of you have had a handout that was very similar to this before probably, and if I repeat myself, then oh well, sorry. But anyway, I just was going to say a few things about natives to begin with. When the native thing first came out, Sally Wasowski, does anybody own her book? She did a really nice book on Texas natives, and that was when it kind of got introduced into the nursery field, I guess, the concept of actually growing and putting natives in your landscape. But
Stuff that was already here before. Stuff that was already here before.
stuff that was actually native
Right.
to Texas. But the thing with her book is it pertained a lot to the hill country. I mean, it did have sections in it, but when the plant material that kind of got introduced into the nursery field at that time, it was mostly plants that had to do with the hill country in central Texas. So we all jumped on board thinking, all right, we can, grow everything native, and you start bringing them into East Texas and it's a whole different ballgame, So there's always been a disconnect between what you can buy in the native arena and what you can really grow, because you can go out and dig things out of nature and put them in your yard, and that works great because they're growing in your area and they're probably going to grow in your garden. But the nursery field only gets merchandise that sells in large quantities. I mean, they're not going to grow a handful of things, so it limits what you can purchase. Does that make sense? So anyway, we kind of had to learn the things that were in the nursery trade, what would grow in East Texas and what would not grow in East Texas. So hence, my list evolves as I learn what works and what doesn't work. Another thing, to keep in mind when you're looking at natives is Texas is vast, and we get 48 inches of rain on average in East Texas. And while I think the whole concept of the native thing is like, oh good, I can plant natives and then I don't have to water. That's kind of where that goes, But even if it can handle drought in the summer, can it handle gobs of water in the wintertime in East Texas? Hello. There's a handout right there, Mandy. So it has to be able to kind of swing both ways, and not everything has that ability to handle that. I know there were a lot of silver things when we, I don't know, I'm drawn to silver in the landscape, and a lot of that stuff just melted as soon as it rained in East Texas. So we kind of had to nix a lot of that stuff right off the bat. So it's been kind of interesting. I'm working on a landscape design this week that has a lot of natives in it, which I thought was funny that it corresponded so well to what we were doing this week. So my challenges as a designer with landscaping with natives is, one thing is there's not tons of evergreens in the native world, which don't ask me why that is. But when you start looking for evergreens to provide structure in your designs, it gets hard when you're just strictly trying to be, you know, totally native, which is why my handout includes adapted plants, because, you know, I just have to broaden the repertoire when I'm designing, or it'll look tragic. A lot of the things that are native grow huge. So, you know, not every homeowner can handle things that grow 10 to 20 feet tall. I mean, you know, we need some smaller things in there. Another thing about natives that I guess because they are adapted to being on the dry side part of the year, a lot of things have small foliage. The smaller the foliage, the less surface for evaporation. So that's great, except that when you start looking at your choices, you're all of a sudden, everything has the same texture in your thoughts. You know, it's like, okay, well, that can go next to that, but oh, it looks just the same kind of in the leaf, you know? So it makes it hard to get interest, I think, sometimes. And I don't know how all of you think, but I think a totally native landscape can be pretty hideous, depending. I mean, I guess it's too wild and woolly for me to handle just completely native. I have to have some other things mixed in there with foliage color, foliage texture, just different things. So hence my adapted plants included in the native plant list. Okay, any questions about any of that stuff? Okay. All right, so I'm not the expert on trees, so I'm not going to spend a long time on the trees part of it. This is just a few things that we commonly use. Vines, on the whole, a lot of people like evergreen vines per se, or either really colorful or evergreen seems to be the choice, and not so much just a deciduous green vine. So some of these are like your crossvine, your Carolina, and your coral honeysuckle are evergreen through the winter time, which is nice. And I don't really have a formula for how much evergreen I want in the winter, but I want a significant part of my designs to include evergreens. Hi girls, there's 2 chairs you can move wherever, and handouts. I just think, and you know, everybody's different. Like some people just love flowers, and the fact that they go dormant in the winter makes them happy, because then they just take a break and then their flowers come back and they love dealing with their flowers. But I just like a little more structure personally, so I'm always looking for some evergreens. So when you look at the list of shrubbery, you can see that a lot of things have quite a significant size to them in the shrub department. So I tend to, if there is going to be irrigation, I tend to add in some of the things that we commonly sell as shrubs, like abelias or loropetalums, or I don't know, barberries, things that usually hold up for a long time, but can give you a little more interest and a little more dwarf size. So also keep in mind that not everybody, like the people I'm working on now, although they want natives, they have irrigation, so they will irrigate. So you have to think in terms, are you ever going to irrigate? Are you going to just irrigate, you know, as infrequently as possible? Are you going to, you know, be able to set it up where you do a couple times a week? Or like my old yard was wet, just by nature was wet. So the things that were native to like west Louisiana worked well in my yard because of the nature of their growth habit. So, you know, don't forget that you have to just not take just because it's native, you know, you got to think about your watering situation for sure. All right, so let's move on to grasses and perennials, which is more my...
You don't have lantana listed as, is that not native?
The purple ground cover type is supposed to be native.
Okay.
I don't know that the big, I think it's naturalized. I don't know if it's actually native.
Yeah, all right.
And I don't know about you, but I find those big old-fashioned ginormous lantanas really super drought tolerant and hardy.
Oh, absolutely. And they take over everything.
Yes, and they reseed.
Oh, yeah.
But the more moderate ones that are more hybrid introduced, I don't find them to be as drought tolerant. Now,
Right,
do
right.
you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, it's not just me.
No.
Okay. I mean, they err on the drier side, but they are not what I would call a completely drought tolerant plant by any means. Okay, here, that's a good look for the camera. Okay, so love grasses, just love grasses. Now, I tried at one time to do a completely kind of native grassy garden with like your little blue stems and your big blue stems and stuff like that. I didn't have much luck. I think there was too much moisture when I did mine, you know, so I just love the look of those, but personally I haven't had a lot of great experience with them, so I think they're worth trying if you have, you know, nice dry sites. Muley grass is one of those things that can sit out in the median and be really dry, or it seems to go in a regular flower bed and handle a, you know, a fair amount of moisture if you're sprinkling. So we like muley grass. Pink muley. I'll hold it up for the camera. Pink muley. Anyway, that's a good one, and it is really kind of considered evergreen. So if it looks rugged and awful, I'll cut it back in the spring and February. But if it doesn't, I'll just leave it. It's kind of my theory on the muley grass.
It takes a lot of sun.
It takes a lot of sun. It will not look good.
I love it, but I can't do it.
Yeah, it will really not look good if it doesn't get a whole lot of sun. It just doesn't shine the way it does. And if you can get the evening sun pouring through it, that's like the ideal spot in the world to place it.
Have you ever tried any of the new Japanese type grasses?
Japanese what?
Grasses.
Like Hakko in, you
I
know,
can't say the names of them.
that melts in the summer. Some of those.
Some of them say they work in shade.
You'll have to give me
I'll
botanical
have to
names.
give you a name, and I can't do it off the top of my head. But I'll try to look one up on
Yeah.
my phone.
That'd be great, yeah, and I can maybe tell you. I don't know if we have any more grasses in our pile here, but anyway, going down the grass list, switchgrass is for wet areas. So if you have a damp spot, it's in this bed right out here where the hibiscus is, and it's kind of more vertical growing, and it gets pretty tall. Blooms in the fall, and I used to have it in my little swamp middle of my yard, and I loved it out there with my hibiscus and stuff because it handles wet. So, you know, not a lot of things take wet, and that's a good one for that. Mexican feathergrass. To me, you really need dry. It almost seems like the drier the better to me, and lots of sun for that. And it does seem to reseed freely.
Yes.
One of the things I didn't put on here was weeping lovegrass, which is a nice size because it's, you know, maybe this high. And that seems to reseed really well. I have it on my little bank now at home because I have a little erosion problem. And I planted some, and now it's all, you know, coming up from seed in there, and it's working really well. So I really kind of like it. It's not gorgeous, but it's useful, I guess you could say. And then northern sea oats will take quite a lot of shade, but it is invasive. So when those little, yes it is. When those little oats hang and they're green, they're very attractive. But as they start to turn brown, we always try to cut them off, because if they land on the soil, the first time we ever grew it, and the next spring we went, what is all that? You know, and it was just this carpet of
And
that
it
stuff coming
blows
up.
everywhere. I
It
mean,
does.
you will find it across the yard
Yeah.
popping up.
So I really like it, but you have to know that it is it is kind of invasive, and you need to plan for that if you're going to use it. So either let it fall and let a big area fill in, or cut it before it ripens is a good way to do that. Another thing while I'm thinking of it, if y'all grow garlic chives,
Mine are blooming right now.
Yeah.
as soon as they finish blooming, before those seed heads develop, you better whack those
I've already
puppers off.
started cutting them off.
Yeah,
Yeah. What is
because
it? Garlic
garlic
chives.
chives. Because once it lands and sprouts, it's not one of those things you can just pull up. You've got to actually physically dig it. So it's good to cut those heads off too. I think of them because they're both similar times of year where you have to cut those. Okay, any other questions about any other grasses? Did you find it? Your grass? Nope. Now, I didn't put on here, but I will tell you that Carex grasses, which, do you still have your brown one? Yeah, Carex Evergold is the little like kind of creamy and green, short. There's some brown ones like Prairie Fire and Red Rooster, different ones with different colors in the foliage. Those are adaptable to drier conditions on the whole. So if you need something like that, you know, a lot of the grasses are really big, so that's great if you've got space. But if you want something on the smaller side, like the little Carex Evergold is like this big, and then like the rooster and stuff maybe about like that, you know. So
How long does it take them to get that big?
the muley,
Yeah, I've got 2 of them that they don't seem to have grown very much.
in the sun, full
Yeah,
sun?
full sun.
I don't know. It usually within a season they'll put on some size. So
Of course, the cats like to lay in them.
they love that Mexican feather grass too.
Well,
to
and
lay
they like that too. Yeah.
That's funny.
The Carex tolerates shade too.
Yes, Carex.
Carex do good for me.
Yes, Carex is great. I think.
I
Yeah.
love them. I love them better than grasses. Grasses, they just don't have enough sun for them to do well.
Right. Yeah. There's not. I mean, other than your liriops and your mondo grass and sea oats, there's not a lot of shady loving grasses. So that's why we like the Carex, because it brought, and there's quite a few Carex, which broadens the repertoire with different, like some are just lime green foliage, so you get a lot of different looks in those Carex grasses.
Are you spelling that?
C-A-R-E-X.
Okay.
Yeah, C-A-R-E-X. So those are great if you have some shade. Question? No? Okay. All right, moving on to perennials. I thought it was interesting that angel trumpet is actually native, which it does reseed like crazy if you've ever grown it. It has those little spiny seed balls on them. But I didn't realize until I was reading up about natives that
And
actually
mine do come up from the
roots.
roots.
Seed. Oh,
No.
from the root too.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
got one that will come up from the root, you know, from the previous year.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Okay, so one of my favorite things is Aster oblongifolia, which it's actually native to somewhere around like central Texas, but it grows perfectly well in East Texas. And one plant will get like nice size on it. And as it matures, you can start to dig, like in the spring when it's coming up, you can start to dig the outer edges and move it if you need to. It is the only aster of all the asters that we've seen offered through the years that ever worked in our area. Most of like the New England asters seem to get mildew and leaf spotting, and they come in such beautiful colors that it's really, you know, heartbreaking that they don't work. But Aster oblongifolia is folia is what I say. How do we really spell it? Yeah, folia. It works the best. So the thing to remember with it is in like June, late June or something, give it a shear, and it will make it bushy and really thick for fall. And then every single part of that thing will be covered with flowers, which is great. So,
I had mine in a pot.
do you?
Yeah.
Well, put it in the ground.
Well, I put one in the ground and it died.
Well,
So
then just leave it in a pot.
I'm leaving it in the pot.
Okay, Salvia greggii. That's obviously an easy one to hybridize because over the years now they keep making new colors in them and new heights in them, which is helpful because the original ones were a little more like 3 feet tall and wide, and they would get a little, I don't know, thin and I don't know.
Are those the bluish purple?
No, these are like reds and corals. Yeah, reds and corals, and
Yeah.
but they come lavender. They come kind of bluey purple. I mean, they come yellow. I mean, there's just a million colors in them. So, but the newer varieties seem to be just as hardy in the winter and everything, but they're more compact. So they make kind of a better looking plant, I think, because they're not so rangy and thin looking. Now, the one thing about them is they'll bloom heavy in the spring, and then you can shear them, you know, a good third or halfway back. And then again in the fall, they'll just give you a really beautiful amount of color. Now,
Hummingbirds like them.
huh? And hummingbirds and butterflies love them, yeah. Now, I will say, I don't know if Hot Lips is native. I forgot to look that up. But Salvia Hot Lips is a microphylla. And it is also, if it's not native, it is adapted. It's a fabulous plant because it just blooms like crazy. Again, they have hybridized on it, and so they are developing different colors and different heights in it now, which is helpful. So,
When I had Hot Lips, it's been a while, it didn't stay true. When it comes back, it doesn't come back with lips. It may come back differently.
it, I don't know if that's, I mean, I'm not saying your experience isn't correct, but it will vary always in the amount of lips and the amount of non-lips in the flowers. It just does that. I don't know why. I've never looked to see whether it's, you know, if they mature, or I don't know why, but it does vary a lot in the amount of lips they have. Okay, Black-Eyed Susan. I will say that the native, like, don't you have that in your yard, Jane? Black-Eyed Susans? Those I consider more of the native types that reseed. Those are extremely tough and drought tolerant. The Rudbeckia Goldstrom that we sell as a really long-lived perennial needs more water than those native varieties. I love the plant, but it has bigger leaves. It just is a whole different animal. So just know that if you're using the Goldstrom. Butterfly weed. I don't even know what we have here. It probably had aphids all over it. Anyway, the native is the tuberosa, which is the short one that you see kind of along pastures a lot, which is for the monarchs in the fall. So we tend to grow the Mexican just because it is an easier plant to grow in a pot, and it's so it's easier for you to take home and plant in the ground. The real native, what do I call it? Yeah, I guess it is tuberosa. It's kind of got a taproot, I think, kind of thing, and so it makes it hard as a nursery plant to deal with. So it's really nice to have if you can get it to go. So we just do the Mexicans, and they just reseed themselves. So they adapt, I would say. Okay, Blackfoot Daisy, which we do have a sample of that one, which I think that's native somewhere around the hill country, but it's great for drape on a wall, great, really well-drained spots. One of our customers had the most gorgeous, ginormous hanging basket of it one year. That was just so pretty. But anyway, it blooms constantly, which is great.
Unless you kill it.
Unless you kill it, but be kind. It doesn't need a lot of water, which we have to watch because we love to water our pots, so we have to know, you know, just hold back on it because it does not drink a lot of water. Okay, cardinal flower is a little bit harder to find, and it is for wetter areas. Beautiful spikes of red flowers in this late spring, I think, early summer, but it's for moist areas. Columbine, in my opinion, I don't know what you think. I always had good luck with it where I had a fair amount of moisture. Give me your feedback, girls. You think so too? Okay. Because for some reason I always thought of it prior to that as a drought tolerant plant, but I don't think so at all. And it reseeded really well for me in my moisture areas. So yeah, and it may be that it likes good drainage, but it likes a fair amount of moisture. You know, not a bog. Okay, Copper Canyon Daisy, I don't think we have any of it right now, but it's a perennial marigold, and it is extremely long-lived and very drought tolerant and blooms in the fall. Love those last of the season surprise bloomers, you know, kind of thing that just kind of finish you off happy for the season. Make you happy after struggling all summer watering that stuff. Flame acanthus is down here. So flame acanthus can get enormous. I think there's a big one still down in Eden, isn't there? You have a huge one, yeah. So the first year you plant it, you probably get about a 3x3 maybe, something like that. It's got little orange trumpet flowers that hummers love, butterflies love. Every season that you grow it, I swear it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So do you cut yours to the ground?
Not to the ground, but it's probably in half, and it just says, okay, here I go.
It's woody. You know, it's kind of almost like a shrub, that, like a hydrangea, like you wouldn't cut that to the ground always, you know. But just know that it's a background plant that needs space, but fabulous, fabulous plant. That was one of the first things that came out on the native Texas plant list back when, and it turned out to be great. Okay, gay feather, I don't have a sample of. Liatris, if you've ever had flower arrangements with gay feathers in them, they're grown from a corm, actually, and you can buy corms and plant them very easily, or you can buy the potted plants. But so they die down, the corms multiply, they pop back up every year. So and they grow natively around East Texas. So they're fun. Okay, Gara I don't have this time of year, but that's that wispy thing that blows in the breeze, and it comes in pink and white. And natively it can get, you know, head high, but the varieties that you usually see in the trade are more like 18 inches to 3 feet tall, which is usually a little more useful when you're trying to landscape.
I have one that's like 4 feet tall, and I was expecting it to be small.
And I do believe that as they reseed themselves, they can revert to their old parentage. So if you get tall ones, just jerk them out as a weed is my suggestion there, because they get a little crazy. So they bloom really heavily in the spring, and then my rule of thumb is when the stem exceeds the amount of flowers that you're looking at, it's time for a haircut, because they don't ever really stop totally blooming, but they get really stemmy looking, and so you know, you're kind of like in a dilemma about whether to cut them or not. So just whack them, because within 2 weeks they'll be out blooming again. You know, it goes really fast, so don't fear doing that. Rudbeckia, great coneflower. I don't think we have that. It's like the what is it, laciniata, that has the really big leaf that you see in the bar ditches in the spring with those really tall yellow flowers, and the cone is tall and the petals go like this, very yellow, like an echinacea, but a Rudbeckia, yes. Those are for moist, obviously, that variety. So different varieties require different things. So just when you're looking at Rudbeckias, just have a look-see at, yeah, what works for your spot. Here's Lantana. The Chimera is what I call the old-fashioned, and then the Montevidensis is the trailing variety that is considered native. I used to not say this because I have this trouble with messy. So whenever things fry from the cold, I usually always, you know, go right out there and trim them all back, because I don't want to look at that, you know. But they say with Lantana being a hollow stemmed, that if you leave that foliage up there, that it tends to survive better through the winter. And I'm almost thinking it does do that. So either cut and mulch well, or don't cut. Not so much on the big giant ones, but on those low trailing varieties. I think that's not a bad idea. So, okay, another salvia is Salvia leucantha, which is Mexican bush sage. So it blooms a bit in the spring, and then it grows really tall. It's just starting. And it's another one that you want to cut in June, so that you make it really thick and bushy, so you get tons of flowers in the fall, and it's not all flopping, you know, over and falling down. But it can get really, really tall. So it's a great background plant. And again, it'll keep the hummers until they're gone, happy, and butterflies. We love salvia, obviously. Whoops.
Hurt.
Really, Mexican petunia. So that is Ruellia, and the tall Mexican petunia starts with a breed, Brit something, is extremely invasive, very tough. But if you plant it, know that it's going to spread, and you're going to never get rid of it, because any root piece you leave, it's like a mint. You're not going to get it out of there. So find it a spot you want it and leave it, is my suggestion. Because we had it originally in that first bed up there, and it took the entire bed, and it took us years to get rid of that stuff. So just, I love it, but just be careful where you put it. The short Mexican petunia it reseeds and it multiplies, but it pulls out way simpler than that big tall variety. So
Now I've got the ground cover.
yes, that's easier to deal with,
Yeah.
for
and
sure. And I like it.
It's not invasive.
Yeah, it can be though.
Mine's not.
Good.
I wish
Yeah.
it were, but it's not.
Wetter areas, it would be more invasive than a drier area.
Well,
I
I
mean,
don't-
like you're in sand.
Yeah. Well, but it's also in shade. I mean, it's underneath oak trees.
Yeah.
And I don't think it really gets enough sun.
Yeah. Yeah, it came up a lot of places in my old wetter yard,
Yes.
for sure. Oxeye daisy is another one that is for moisture ground. I would say well drained, but needs a fair amount of moisture, and it can reseed itself. In fact, I think you'll get a few back from the original roots, but mostly it reseeds itself. Pink Pavonia, which we have right here, which is a really fine little plant because it blooms really pretty much all summer and fall. So that's a nice long season, perennial, not too tall. So nice habit, drought tolerant. Phlox pilosa is like a wood phlox that grows about 15 or 18 inches tall with kind of a lavender pink. Not as easy to find as some things, but a nice thing, especially if you have partial shade. Purple cone flower, that varies. Like Sharon Cheney has buku. Yeah, she can go into the echinacea business. Me, I have never gotten an echinacea to live in either of my yards my entire gardening career. It's sickening. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? Yeah. So where they're happy, and where they're not, they're just not. So it's just funny that way. Yeah, I would love to have them, and I just can't.
I'll give you
I
some
try every year
spring.
though. Huh?
I'll give you some every spring.
Okay, give me a start. We'll see. I mean, I did. I tried them again this year, but didn't do it. Okay, Louisiana phlox is another one that is for partial shade, morning sun or part shade. And they have developed hybrids of these that are fabulous. Bigger blooms, longer blooming, seem to be just as tough. They're not a drought tolerant thing. They have to have some moisture, but very useful. Salvia coccinea is a salvia that only reseeds. It doesn't come back from the original plant. It's an annual, but it, I think mostly gets about yay tall, reseeds freely, but it's a shade lover. So if you want a salvia that, takes over your shade, it's something to think about, because again, the hummers love that. Henry Dulberg is a plant that they found, Salvia Henry Dulberg, at a cemetery. So it was just kind of living out there without much care, and has done great. Mary doesn't like it because she thinks it's too wispy, I think, too thin looking. The flowers aren't heavy, but it blooms from spring to fall. I just love it,
It has a
personally.
little fragrance too.
Does it have a fragrance? I never
Yeah,
even
every
noticed
time
that.
I walk by this area, I was trying
You
to
smell
figure
it.
out, what am I smelling? Then I realized that was it.
Cool.
It's just a faint smell.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's great. It reseeds. You can just, jerk
What
them out.
color is it?
Blue.
That's probably what I have.
Yes,
It's
because you gave me some. It's everywhere. Yeah, yeah. But you just pull them out like
Yeah.
you weed anything else
Yeah.
out, you know, if you don't want them. But yeah, I just think it's a useful plant.
Henry has a wife too, and she's a white self.
Yes, Augusta Dulberg is
Yes.
actually even better than Henry Dulberg in ways because the flowers are heavier and she gets taller. Like she's more like a yay tall and Henry's more like a yay tall. And Augusta's thicker in her habit also. Harder to find Augusta. Like this year we did not find any Augusta, which is the white, at all. We only found Henry.
Now, are you saying
So-
that this doesn't come back from the,
It does come back from the root.
well, yeah, I started saying mine do.
Yes. No, coccinea was the
Okay.
one above it that
And
doesn't come
if
back. But it reseeds a
I
lot.
cut it back midsummer,
Yes. Yes.
it'll come back out.
It's another one that, you know, partway through the summer you think there's a lot of stems and not a lot of flowers. So that's the time you want to whack it a little and make it bush up, and then it'll come back really nice and pretty. Okay, spiderwort is shade loving, part shade at least. And the native is not as long bloomed or as bright a color as the hybrids of them. But to me, the hybrids are just fine. They give you the same longevity and durability, but they have bigger flowers, showier flowers, and they bloom for a longer period of time. So I think that's a plus. You know, not everything hybridized is a good thing. They like you to believe that every year when they put the magazines out, like it's the newest and the best. Not always true. Okay, Coreopsis reseeds freely. I don't think it comes back from the root very well. It's mostly from reseeding itself, like you see it on the sides of the road all the time in the spring. Turk's cap is another one. You better plant it where you want it because it roots to China, and it's really, I swear I cannot dig it out. It just is too much of a plant for me to ever dig out. But it's tremendous because it just takes a spot and it blooms for a long time. It usually starts about, I don't know, July all the way to frost. We have the pink in one bed and the red in another bed, and we have them pretty much in full sun. That wasn't our original intent, but the tree died, and so it left them in full sun, and they've done fine. But they don't have to have that much sun by any means. So you can attract hummers to the shade by having Turk's cap. The pink, actually, we noticed one year had more butterflies on it than the red did, which we thought was quite interesting. I don't know if it does every year, but that year we were paying attention and it did. So, nice plant, but multiplies. Okay, Texas Betony I don't have, we usually get that only in the spring. And it's just a little short plant with a little, almost a salvia looking flower on it. Love the color of it though, it's coral. Beautiful color, really pretty color. So that used to grow at my house pretty good in well-drained, moist soil. So I don't know if any of you have that sort of situation, but Texas Sundrops is yellow, like lemon yellow, short, nice for a wall, nice for a border, hot sun, blooms long. Don't have a sample this time of year of that one. Okay, eupatoriums are in the, like I used to have in my old yard, wild ageratum, which grew about knee high with like lavender blue flowers, and it's great for butterflies. So we have that up there. It's got more of a smooth leaf. The one you see a lot talked about is Greg's Mist Flower, which has a jaggy leaf on it, which we have up there too. But I mean, when they bloom, they are covered in butterflies, just covered in butterflies. So they're a fall flowering plant mostly. Okay, wine cups, we don't have those a lot. They are so ugly in a pot. Oh, it's painful. And I need to do a better job of buying some when they're in season. They bloom in late spring, early summer, because we do have calls for them, but I just, golly, I can't hardly stand looking at them in their little pots, because they're just, they run, so they're just kind of, you know, everywhere in their little pots. But really make a nice, you know, big splash in the ground because their flowers are like magenta, really beautiful colors. So, and I have to wonder, have y'all grown wine cups? No? Okay, because they're at the end of this bed right here, which is where the white spider lily is, which likes moisture, and that's where the nursery drains. So I don't really know where wine cups are naturalized at, but they naturalize themselves quite well there in that wet spot. So wood fern, southern wood fern, is the one that you don't want to plant in a flower bed with anything else, in my opinion, because it spreads by underground runners, and it's another one like mint. You cannot dig it out. It will sprout no matter what you do. So it looks beautiful, like, you have a big oak tree and you want to just, cover the ground underneath and let it go crazy. It looks beautiful. But if you mix it in with shrubs and other things, you will fight it for the rest of eternity. So, and it's about knee high, I'd say. It's a beautiful, graceful, soft-looking fern. It's really
Does it
pretty.
die down in the winter?
It dies down in
Yeah,
the winter.
yeah, okay.
Yes.
That
Love
goes
it.
over.
It's just really invasive when it's in with other plants. Yarrow. That's one that I don't know how y'all feel. I feel it's mildly drought tolerant. I don't feel like it's totally something you could leave, without water. The old-fashioned white, tall Achillea millefolium was extremely invasive. So loved it, but it just, often you'd see it at old homesteads where it was along a fence line, and people would just let it go and do its thing. The one that we love the most and has been in our flower bed at least 25 years now is Paprika yarrow. And so it's dwarf, it's like 18 inches tall, and it has that reddish bloom that fades really nicely, because instead of, like, a lot of them fade from their color to, brown ugly. This one has changes, it goes from like red to brick to kind of tan to finely brown. So it has nice stages that it goes through. So love it a lot.
The millefolium is a very well used herb
Yes, it is.
in lots of different areas.
It is. Yes, it is an
The
herb.
right one.
Yeah. And it's evergreen, which is also kind of nice for a garden too. Now Zexmania, I'm always talking up Zexmania. We don't have it. We may not even have it. So, but I'll talk it up anyway. It's got small leaves. It can be very drought tolerant. It's kind of knee high, moundy. It reseeds. It has little daisy-like gold flowers on it. Love it because it starts blooming in May and it blooms all the way to frost, which is great in a perennial, in my opinion. So, and it persists for years and years and years, which is another thing that I love about it. So, that's been really fun. This was not on the list, which is Scutellaria, which is really good in Central Texas. If you do it here, you need a really well-drained, drier spot to put it. But it is another thing that blooms all summer and fall, which is nice, and it's tidy. Not a lot of things are tidy. So that's a use for it right there. Oh, here's Greg Smith right here. See the jagged leaves? I think they're very pretty. And then it'll have those lavender blue blooms soon. All right, did I show everything I had? Oh, Texas Star Hibiscus, which is considered somewhat drought tolerant once established, compared to the other perennial hibiscus, which are not ever considered drought tolerant. So it's kind of tall and narrow, and we get it in the red and the white, which are both very attractive. So those are fun for summer color.
This year, and it's 10 feet tall.
Really?
Yeah, I got the spot.
Wow.
It's a giant.
How
My
neat.
husband was helping me stake it up.
That's great.
We have 2 or 3 and they are huge.
I wonder if it was all the rain this year that made them especially
know.
tall.
I
I
don't know,
wonder.
but-
Well, and the lack of scorchingly hot
I
temperature.
know.
Yeah,
You know, I think a lot of times that keeps them from doing much.
I noticed that like earlier, probably like midsummer, I was saying things like, are we going to have an early winter because such and such is already budding, or, you know, something's already starting to bloom. And then I thought, you know, it was probably really because it was more of a mild summer.
Yeah.
So things acted more like they do in other climates instead of in Texas where they just shut down and
Right.
kind of exist for months and then finally kick back in, you know. So it was really interesting year, I thought. That's the fun about gardening. Every year is interesting and different. You never know what you're going to get. Yes, ma'am.
Japanese forest grass here.
That's it. Half blow. Yeah, no.
Have you ever tried it?
Yes, many times. Melts in the summer. I mean, it absolutely melts in the summer. It's stunning. I know. We want it to work. We've tried it. You know, we tried it, and then a couple years went by, and we thought, oh, that was just that year, you know. We tried it again, and we just tried it like 2 years ago again. No, it will not grow.
It's supposed to take some shade.
It takes a lot of shade, yes. And it's a beautiful look, yeah. But we've gotten it in the fall, grown it all winter, thinking, well, maybe if it gets established by the time it gets hot, it'll make it. But no. So, yeah, ugly.
May have to try it.
Try it, yeah. You may have just the perfect spot. You know how that is. But anyway, any questions? Sure is good to see everybody.
Okay, this has nothing to do with gardening. About a week and a half ago, somebody dumped 4 kittens on my neighbor's yard. We have managed to find homes for 3 of them.
Boy, you're doing
If any
good.
of you would like a beautiful, cute little 6 to 8 week old kitten that's black and white, I'd love to have you have it. Let me know. I'm just asking anybody I can.
Well, you've done 3. That's great.
Yeah, we feel lucky that we've managed to do 3.
All right. So what have y'all been up to?
As little as possible.
Staying home? Mowing. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a little reprieve there when it was so hot, and then wham, it's back again, isn't it?
So
Yes,
I have
ma'am.
a plant question.
Uh-huh.
I think that this is Melissa Lemon because it came back at like 4 years.
It is not lemon balm.
After I had planted something there, it just showed back
I
up.
think it's catnip. Catnip.
It's catnip. Okay.
Yeah. You got to watch Jackie. You know, she'll eat anything in an herb.
Medicine out of it, yes. Catnip is a good medicine.
It is a good medicinal, so that's a good thing.
But I'm glad to know what it is because I don't want to use it for
Well, you
more
know, I've
medicine.
got some of that I thought it was weed. I guess I'll have to
Smell
quit
it.
pulling up.
Smell that because it's got a distinct fragrance. I don't know about y'all, but I'm kind of over my summer pots and ready to rip them
Yeah.
out. Man, they're looking wild and woolly. I mean, I watered them, but you know how they get, just too big and too crazy. And you know what's funny though? I hurt my knee about 2 weeks ago. I had to have like a few days off to rest my knee. And so my husband was doing my watering, which, oh. He comes in and he's all hot, and I said, "You don't feel the joy?" He goes, "No, I don't feel the joy." He said, "It's like if I had an old jalopy or two out there, and every 3 days I told you had to go out there and charge up the batteries for me. That's what it's like." I said, "Well, you're right. That wouldn't be very fun." But anyway, he said he watered my little bed up near the house, and he watered my pots, but my bed out near the fence, which he hates anyway, which has never been that charming. He says, "I'm not watering that bed." Well, it was still really hot, and I thought, okay, well, that's fine because I'm not that charmed by it. It needs to die, and I need to start again, you know. So then my knee got better, and of course, as soon as it was better, I hauled that water hose out there, you know, and everything was just, and I watered it all, and so it's alive again. And I thought, isn't it funny? I can rip that stuff out, no problem. I can go out there and I can just rip it live out of the ground and throw it away to plant something new. But I cannot just let it die of drought. Isn't that crazy? I thought that was so interesting about myself, like stupid.
Yeah, but if it's slowly dying, it's being
It's
tortured.
painful.
I was gonna
Yes,
say, yes,
it's torture.
yes,
Yeah, it's
yes.
painful.
I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
what is wrong with this leaf? I think it's been living with those little white dots forever, and I think it's, forgot what I think it is now.
It looks like Spider-Man.
Sharon, you want to turn your video off?
Yes.
It's a passion flower is what it is.
Bye.